Welcome to Detectives Crime Stories. In this episode, a stepson's secret affair spirals into an obsession and leads to a grisly murder. Let's delve into the details. Angela Martinez Smith was a lively 38-year-old woman, celebrated for her artistic talents and kind-hearted nature. She resided in Oakville, Georgia, a quaint town famous for its charming downtown and the annual Blossom Festival. Angela worked as a freelance artist, creating beautiful paintings and sculptures that she sold at local art fairs and galleries. She lived with her husband, Robert Smith, and her 18-year-old stepson, Ethan. Robert, a retired naval officer, had been married to Angela for 10 years, and despite their 20-year age gap, they were deeply in love. They met at a local art show featuring Angela's work, where Robert was immediately drawn to her creativity and passion for life. Angela strived to maintain a happy and harmonious home, balancing her freelance work with managing the household and caring for Ethan, who had lost his biological mother a few years earlier. Although Angela and Ethan's relationship was strained, she remained hopeful that they could eventually bond. In her free time, Angela enjoyed reading and gardening. She was a fan of classic literature, often quoting Jane Austen and the Bronte sisters. Her garden, filled with vibrant flowers, was a testament to her love for nature. Angela was also active in the local community, volunteering at the Oakville Public Library and participating in neighborhood events. In the days leading up to her death, Angela was excited about a new art project. She was working on a series of sculptures inspired by the local wildlife and landscapes of Georgia, planning to showcase these pieces at the upcoming Blossom Festival. She was also looking forward to a small family getaway she had planned, hoping it would help mend her strained relationship with Ethan. Angela's friends described her as charismatic and friendly, always willing to lend a helping hand. They recalled how she often hosted dinner parties, cooking delicious meals and creating a warm, welcoming atmosphere. Despite life's challenges, Angela remained optimistic and full of dreams, hoping to open her own art gallery someday and inspire others with her work. Tragically, her dreams were cut short by a brutal and senseless act of violence. Angela's life, marked by resilience and creativity, left a deep void for all who knew her. On the morning of September 12, 2012, Oakville was just waking up. It was a cool, clear day with the sun shining brightly. Around 8:30 a.m., Angela's neighbor, Lily Thompson, walked over to the Smith house. Lily, who was 25, often visited Angela to discuss her true crime novel, which was based on real-life events. Finding no answer at the door, Lily, knowing Angela was usually up early working in her art studio, decided to check there. As she approached the studio, she noticed the door was slightly open. Entering, Lily was greeted by a horrific scene. Angela lay on the floor, covered in blood, amid broken sculptures and shattered glass, showing signs of a violent struggle. Shocked and horrified, Lily's hands trembled as she dialed 911. The operator, trying to calm her, instructed her to stay outside and wait for the police. Lily, still in shock, followed the instructions, standing in the yard, staring at the studio, trying to process what she had seen. The police arrived within minutes. They noted a heavy sculpture near Angela's body, clearly the murder weapon used to inflict multiple blunt force trauma injuries. The amount of blood and the state of the studio indicated a frenzied attack. Lily was interviewed, managing to provide a clear account of her morning, despite her shaken state, detailing her relationship with Angela and her reasons for visiting. Her observations helped the investigators piece together the timeline of events leading up to the discovery of Angela's body. The discovery of Angela's body marked the beginning of a complex and emotional investigation. Friends and neighbors, left in shock, struggled to understand how such a brutal crime could happen in their peaceful community. Detective Mike Cole, a seasoned investigator known for his thoroughness, led the team, accompanied by Officer Jane Morales, respected for her calm and methodical approach. Both had seen many crime scenes, but the brutality of this one stood out. Entering the art studio, they were met with a gruesome sight. Blood splattered on the walls, the floor covered with broken sculptures and shattered glass. The room, usually a creative space, looked like a horror movie scene. Angela's body lay on the floor, showing signs of a violent struggle. It was clear she had been beaten to death with a heavy sculpture found nearby, stained with blood. The police immediately began their investigation, cordoning off the area to preserve evidence. Detective Cole and Officer Morales carefully examined the crime scene, using advanced forensic techniques, including fingerprint dusting and blood pattern analysis, to piece together what had happened. The detectives worked quickly but meticulously, collecting blood and hair samples for DNA analysis and taking photographs from every angle. They found a few items out of place, like a torn piece of cloth and a broken piece of jewelry, which they bagged as evidence. Outside, neighbors gathered, watching with a mix of fear and curiosity. The police asked anyone who had seen or heard anything unusual to come forward, conducting door-to-door interviews to gather more information about the hours leading up to the discovery of Angela's body. As the day went on, the police presence grew, with additional officers arriving to help with the investigation and the media starting to gather, drawn by the shocking nature of the crime. News reporters from local stations like WCI and the Oakville Gazette began reporting live from the scene, adding to the growing sense of urgency. By the end of the day, the police had gathered substantial evidence, but many questions remained. Who could have done this, and why? Detective Cole and Officer Morales knew they had a long road ahead, but were determined to find justice for Angela. Robert Smith, Angela's husband, was the first suspect the police investigated. Robert, 58, had a disciplined and stoic personality, shaped by his years of service in the Navy. Despite his stern exterior, Robert was deeply in love with Angela and very protective of his family. On September 12, 2012, after discovering Angela's body, the police brought Robert in for questioning. Detective Cole and Officer Morales conducted the interview. Robert appeared calm, but was clearly shaken by the news of his wife's death. He told the detectives he had been away on a business trip, staying at a Hampton Inn in Boston, providing hotel receipts and a confirmation of his check-in and check-out times to back up his alibi. Robert's interview lasted several hours, during which the detectives asked about his relationship with Angela and any possible enemies she might have had. Robert spoke about the tensions between Angela and his son Ethan, mentioning that Ethan had been acting out since his biological mother's death and struggled to accept Angela as a mother figure. Robert believed that despite these challenges, the family would eventually reconcile. The police also searched the Smith home for additional evidence, going through Robert's belongings and searching his car, but finding nothing suspicious. They interviewed Robert's colleagues and checked his phone records, all of which confirmed his alibi. Throughout the investigation, Robert maintained his composure, though the strain was visible. He expressed his grief and disbelief that someone could harm Angela, cooperating fully with the police. Meanwhile, local news outlets such as WCI and the Oakville Gazette reported on the investigation. Neighbors and friends of the Smiths were shocked to hear that Robert was a suspect, describing him as a kind and loving husband who would never harm his wife. Despite his strong alibi, the police continued to investigate Robert to ensure nothing was overlooked, re-examining the crime scene and cross-checking all details of his alibi. Detective Cole and Officer Morales were thorough, leaving no stone unturned. As days passed, it became clear that Robert was not involved in Angela's murder, and the focus of the investigation shifted to other potential suspects. While Robert was cleared, the pain of losing Angela and being under suspicion was a heavy burden for him to bear. On September 15, 2012, just 3 days after discovering Angela's body, Oakville was covered in a light drizzle. The gray skies matched the town's somber mood. Around noon, while reviewing the evidence collected from the crime scene, Detective Cole noticed something unusual hidden among Angela's art supplies in her studio. Dozens of letters. These were not just any letters, but sexually explicit love letters exchanged between Angela and someone else. Detective Cole and Officer Morales carefully read through the letters, revealing a secret affair between Angela and an unidentified individual. The letters spoke graphically of secret sex acts and deep, conflicting emotions, suggesting a possible motive for the murder. Detective Cole called for a meeting with the entire investigative team to discuss the letters' contents and implications. The team knew they had to identify the other person involved in the affair to understand the full context and potential motives. Officer Morales led the effort to gather more information, visiting Angela's close friends and neighbors to see if anyone knew about the affair. Many were shocked and had no idea Angela was involved with someone other than her husband, Robert. The news quickly spread through the small, conservative Southern community, creating a buzz of gossip and speculation. Meanwhile, forensic experts analyzed the letters for fingerprints and DNA evidence, checking Angela's phone records and email history for clues about her secret lover. The investigation was thorough, scrutinizing every detail. On that same rainy afternoon, while examining Angela's phone, the detectives found a series of explicit text messages and call logs leading them to suspect Ethan, Angela's 18-year-old stepson. The messages hinted at a strained and complicated sexual relationship between Angela and Ethan. Some texts were heated arguments, while others were more explicit, graphically describing their sexual relationship. Detective Cole and Officer Morales were shocked by this revelation. Ethan had always been seen as a troubled teenager, but the extent of his relationship with Angela was unexpected. The detectives knew they had to approach this delicately to uncover the truth. The discovery of the love letters and text messages shifted the investigation's focus. The police now had a clearer direction, and the puzzle pieces were slowly coming together. They prepared to interrogate Ethan again, this time with new compelling evidence that could unlock the secrets behind Angela's tragic death. True crime case solvers interested in more real-life murder mysteries, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Do you have any thoughts about this case or a case of your own you'd like us to investigate? Leave us a comment. Stay safe. Detectives' Crime Stories. Tyler Johnson, Angela's 18-year-old stepson, became the focus of the investigation after the love letters and text messages were discovered. Tyler was a troubled teenager, still struggling with the death of his biological mother and Angela's arrival in his life. He often acted out, showing signs of resentment towards Angela for taking his mother's place. Despite this, he was intelligent and ambitious, with a passion for music, spending hours playing his guitar and dreaming of becoming a famous musician. On September 16, 2012, Tyler was brought in for questioning. Detective Mike Cole and Officer Jane Morales conducted the interview. Tyler appeared nervous but tried to remain calm. The detectives began by asking him about his relationship with Angela. Tyler admitted that their relationship was strained but denied any involvement in her murder. However, when the detectives presented the love letters, Tyler's demeanor changed. He became visibly upset and defensive, confessing to the affair and explaining that they had started having sex about a year ago. Tyler said he became obsessed with Angela, believing they could be together if his father Robert were out of the picture. However, Angela tried to end the affair to focus on her marriage, which frustrated Tyler. The detectives pressed Tyler for more details, asking about the night of Angela's murder. Tyler claimed he was at a friend's house watching movies. The police checked his alibi, but it was weak and lacked concrete evidence. His friend Jake said Tyler was with him but couldn't remember specific details or times. Tyler's reaction to the interrogation was a mix of anger and fear. He was defensive and argumentative, denying any involvement in the murder while expressing frustration over Angela ending the affair. The detectives noted his conflicting emotions, which seemed to oscillate between sadness and anger. While Tyler was a prime suspect, the police needed more evidence to link him directly to the crime. They continued to analyze the physical evidence from the crime scene and cross-referenced it with Tyler's statements. The detectives also reviewed security camera footage from the neighborhood, hoping to find any inconsistencies in Tyler's alibi. The investigation into Tyler was intense and thorough, with Detective Cole and Officer Morales determined to uncover the truth. They knew Tyler had a motive, but they needed solid evidence to prove his involvement. The love letters and text messages were crucial, but they had to build a strong case. The investigation was far from over, and the detectives continued to piece together the puzzle. Tyler remained a key figure in the case, and the police were determined to find justice for Angela. Lily Thompson, the Johnsons' 25-year-old neighbor, became another person of interest in the investigation. Lily lived next door and frequently visited the Johnson house. She had a keen interest in true crime stories and was working on a novel based on real-life events. Lily was known for her observant nature and was often seen taking notes and photos around the neighborhood. On September 17, 2012, the police brought Lily in for questioning. Detective Mike Cole and Officer Jane Morales conducted the interview. Lily appeared calm and cooperative, explaining that she had a passion for writing and was fascinated by true crime. She often visited Angela to discuss her novel and get feedback on her writing. The detectives asked Lily about the morning she discovered Angela's body. Lily recounted the events in detail, describing how she found the studio door slightly open and discovered Angela lying on the floor. She spoke about her shock and horror, and how she immediately called 911. The detectives noted that Lily's account was consistent with the initial report. As the questioning continued, the detectives probed deeper into Lily's relationship with the Johnsons. Lily admitted that she often observed the family dynamics, noting the tension between Angela and Tyler. She also mentioned that she had seen Tyler acting suspiciously on several occasions, but didn't think much of it at the time. The detectives asked Lily about her interest in true crime and whether it influenced her actions. Lily explained that her interest was purely academic and creative. She was writing a novel and used her observations to create realistic characters and scenarios. She denied any involvement in Angela's murder and insisted that she was just a concerned neighbor. Lily's calm and cooperative demeanor made it difficult for the detectives to determine if she was hiding anything. They decided to search her house for any evidence that might link her to the crime. They found several notebooks filled with detailed observations about the neighborhood and the Johnsons, but nothing directly incriminating. Despite her cooperation, Lily remained a person of interest. The detectives continued to monitor her closely, looking for any inconsistencies in her story. They also reviewed the security footage from the neighborhood, hoping to find any evidence that could either implicate or clear her. As the investigation into Lily continued, the detectives faced the challenge of distinguishing between her genuine interest in true crime and any potential involvement in Angela's death. The complexity of the case deepened, but the police remained committed to finding the truth and bringing justice for Angela. On September 20th, 2012, the investigation took a significant turn. Detective Mike Cole and Officer Jane Morales had gathered enough evidence to identify the murderer. The evidence pointed to Tyler Johnson, Angela's 18-year-old stepson. Tyler's conflicting emotions and erratic behavior had raised suspicions from the start, but it was the discovery of his fingerprints on the murder weapon that sealed his fate. Tyler was known to be a troubled teenager, struggling with the recent death of his biological mother and resenting Angela for taking her place. Despite his intelligence and passion for music, Tyler's feelings for Angela had evolved into a dangerous mix of hatred and desire. When Angela confronted him about his failing grades and her decision to end their secret affair, Tyler snapped. In a fit of rage and obsession, he attacked her with a heavy sculpture from her studio. The detectives had pieced together the events of that fateful day. Tyler had been at the house, waiting for the right moment. When Angela entered the studio, he followed her. The confrontation escalated quickly, and in his fury, Tyler grabbed the sculpture and struck Angela multiple times, leading to her death. With the evidence in hand, the police prepared to arrest Tyler. On the evening of September 20th, they arrived at the Johnson home. Tyler was in his room, listening to music on his iPod, when the officers entered. Tyler seemed surprised, but didn't resist arrest. He was handcuffed and taken to the police station for processing. Robert Johnson, Tyler's father, was devastated by the news. He couldn't believe that his son was capable of such a brutal act. The family was torn apart by the revelation, and the community was equally shocked. Neighbors and friends who had known Tyler as a quiet, troubled teen now saw him in a completely different light. The police detailed the evidence during a press conference, explaining how Tyler's obsession with Angela and his inability to control his emotions led to the murder. The discovery of the sexually explicit letters and Tyler's fingerprints on the murder weapon were critical pieces of the puzzle that helped solve the case. As Tyler was taken away, his reaction was a mix of anger and resignation. He knew the evidence against him was overwhelming and that there was no escape from the consequences of his actions. Angela's friends and family were relieved that the murderer had been caught, but the pain of losing Angela remained. The arrest of Tyler Johnson brought some closure to the case, but the journey to justice was far from over. The next step was the trial, where the full extent of Tyler's actions and motives would be revealed. The trial of Tyler Johnson began on November 5, 2012, in Oakville, Georgia. The courtroom was filled with reporters, friends, and family members, all eager to hear the details of the case. The prosecution was led by Assistant District Attorney James Bliver, a seasoned lawyer known for his tenacity and thoroughness. He was 45 years old, with a stern demeanor that commanded respect. Bliver argued that Tyler's obsession with Angela, coupled with his anger over her ending their affair, led him to commit the brutal murder. He presented the love letters, text messages, and forensic evidence linking Tyler to the crime. The prosecution's case was solid, painting a clear picture of Tyler's motive and actions. The defense was handled by public defender Sarah Jane Lemon, a compassionate and determined attorney who had been practicing law for over 20 years. She was 42 years old and known for her dedication to her clients. Lemon argued that Tyler was a troubled teenager deeply affected by his mother's death and struggling with mental health issues. She claimed that Tyler's actions were not premeditated, but a result of emotional turmoil and confusion. Throughout the trial, the emotional toll on Angela's family was evident. Her husband, Robert Johnson, sat in the front row, his face etched with grief and disbelief. Friends and family members wept quietly as they listened to the details of Angela's tragic death. After several weeks of testimony and evidence, the jury deliberated for 2 days. On December 3, 2012, they returned with a verdict. Tyler Johnson was found guilty of second-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the verdict. Tyler showed little emotion, his face blank as he listened to his fate. The sentencing took place on December 10, 2012. Tyler was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge stated that while Tyler's actions were driven by emotional distress, the brutality of the crime warranted a severe punishment. The sentence aimed to provide justice for Angela and her family, while acknowledging Tyler's troubled background. Angela's family had mixed reactions to the sentence. Some felt it was too lenient given the nature of the crime, while others believed it was a fair balance between justice and compassion for Tyler's mental state. The community of Oakville was left to grapple with the aftermath of the tragedy, hoping to find some sense of closure. The trial and sentencing of Tyler Johnson were widely covered by local media, including WCI and the Oakville Gazette. The case served as a somber reminder. The trial and sentencing of Tyler Johnson were widely covered by local media, including WCI and the Oakville Gazette. The case served as a somber reminder of the impact of emotional and mental health issues and the devastating consequences they can have. After Tyler Johnson was sentenced to 25 years in prison, life in Oakville, Georgia, began to slowly move forward. The trial had been a traumatic experience for everyone involved, leaving lasting impacts on the community. Robert Johnson, Angela's husband, struggled to cope with the loss of his wife and the imprisonment of his son. He took a overwhelming sense of betrayal. Friends and neighbors provided support, but Robert often felt isolated. He decided to move to Savannah to start fresh, away from the painful memories in Oakville. Tyler's incarceration was a difficult adjustment for him as well. He was sent to a state correctional facility where he began receiving psychological counseling. The prison system offered educational programs, and Tyler enrolled in classes to complete his high school education and began studying music theory, still clinging to his dream of becoming a musician someday. Lily Thompson, the neighbor and true crime enthusiast, was deeply affected by the entire ordeal. She continued to write her novel, now incorporating the harrowing experience she had lived through. The local media, including WCI and the Oakville Gazette, featured interviews with Lily discussing her perspective on the case. Despite the unwanted attention, Lily remained focused on her writing, finding solace in her creative work. Detective Mike Cole and Officer Jane Morales, the lead investigators, received commendations for their diligent work in solving the case. The success of their investigation reinforced their commitment to justice and the importance of thorough police work. The case also highlighted the need for increased support for mental health issues, both within families and the broader community. Life in Oakville gradually returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the memory of Angela Johnson and the tragic events that unfolded remained etched in the hearts of those who knew her. The town's resolve to support mental health initiatives and honor Angela's legacy became a lasting tribute to her life. Thank you for listening to this episode of Detectives Crime Stories. The tragic story of Angela Johnson reminds us of the complexities of human relationships and the dark paths obsession can lead us down. Join us next time as we explore another case in our pursuit of truth and justice. Stay safe.
Bye.